My name is Elena Vance. I'm 45 years old. The night my husband was making short ribs in our Chicago penthouse, my life quietly ended. I found a baby registry linked to my niece's email. I didn't scream. Instead, I texted her. "Come over for dinner. I have your tuition check ready." When the doorbell rang, my husband's face froze like death itself had knocked on our door. I promise you, this story will shake you to your core. Now, let me tell you how my perfectly constructed world shattered in one moment, and how I made sure everyone who betrayed me paid the price they deserved. The wind off Lake Michigan has a specific sound in January. It's not just a howl, it's a threat, a low-frequency vibration that rattles the glass of my corner office on the 45th floor. Most people find it unsettling, but I've always found it clarifying. In my line of work, corporate real estate law, you need to be comfortable with cold pressure. I looked at the clock, 6:45 p.m. Below me, the Chicago Loop was a grid of amber streetlights and brake lights, a nervous system freezing in real time. "One more contract," I whispered to myself, rubbing the tension from my temples. I was finalizing the lease renewal for the Blue Note, the upscale jazz club my husband, Marcus, owned in River North. Well, owned was a generous term. I owned the LLC. Marcus owned the vision. He was the charm, the handshake, the man who knew exactly how to pour a scotch to make you feel like the only person in the room. I was the one who made sure the scotch was paid for. We were a team, or so I told myself. We had been married for 20 years, 2 decades of building an empire from nothing but student loans and ambition. My phone buzzed on the mahogany desk. A text from Marcus. "Braised short ribs are almost done, baby. Don't work too late." I opened the 808 cab. "Come home." I smiled, a genuine soft thing that felt rare these days. Marcus was attentive. He was affectionate. Even at 47, he had that magnetic pull that made heads turn when we walked into a gala. I typed back, "Leaving in 10. Love you." I just needed to upload the renewed insurance riders to our shared family cloud account so the club's liquor license wouldn't flag in the city system. I logged into the drive, navigating through folders labeled taxes, mortgage, vacation to 4. That's when I saw it. A folder I didn't recognize. It was sitting in the root directory, created 3 weeks ago. It was titled simply, "Our Little Secret." My heart did a little stutter step. Our 20th anniversary was coming up in May. Marcus was terrible at hiding gifts. Last year, he'd accidentally synced a folder of jewelry designs he was commissioning for me. I chuckled, shaking my head. "Oh, Marcus, you digital dinosaur." I clicked the folder, fully expecting to see photos of a vintage watch, or maybe specs for the vacation home in Aspen we'd been eyeing. The first image wasn't a watch. It was a digital receipt from a high-end baby boutique in Lincoln Park. A crib, a hand-carved Scandinavian oak crib costing $20,500. I blinked. My brain, usually a steel trap for logic, misfired. "Who is this for?" I thought. "Is a friend pregnant? Is this a donation?" I clicked the next file. A video. I shouldn't have clicked it. I should have closed the laptop, driven home, and lived in ignorance for 1 more hour. But I am a lawyer. I don't look away from evidence. I dissect it. The video was shaky, taken on a phone. It was inside an ultrasound room. The rhythmic whoosh 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 of a fetal heartbeat filled my office speakers, drowning out the wind outside. "Look at that strong heartbeat," a doctor's voice said. Then, Marcus's voice. Unmistakable. Gravelly, warm, full of awe. "That's my boy. Look at him." The camera panned. Lying on the examination table, her shirt pulled up, was a young woman. She was laughing, wiping happy tears from her eyes. She looked radiant, her skin glowing under the fluorescent lights. It was Sophia. My niece. The room spun. The floor seemed to tilt on its axis. I gripped the edge of my desk so hard my knuckles turned the color of bone. Sophia, my brother's daughter. The girl I had taken in when she was 12 years old. After her father, my only sibling, was sentenced to 15 years for racketeering. The girl whose braces I paid for. The girl whose tears I dried when she didn't get a prom date. The girl whose tuition at Northwestern I was currently paying in full. She was 25. Marcus was 47. I stared at the timestamp on the video. Tuesday, November 14th, 2:30 p.m. I checked my own calendar. That Tuesday, Marcus had told me he was meeting with the liquor distributor all afternoon. He had kissed me goodbye that morning, handed me a coffee, and told me I looked beautiful. Then he had gone to a doctor's appointment to watch my niece carry his child. I didn't scream. I didn't throw my laptop through the window. Instead, a terrifying calm washed over me. It was the same cold detachment I felt when I was about to destroy a hostile witness in a deposition. It was the death of emotion and the birth of strategy. I sat back in my Herman Miller chair and took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of expensive leather and betrayal. They think I'm stupid, I realized. They think I'm just the bank. I clicked through the rest of the folder. It was a treasure trove of devastation. Screenshots of text messages. Sophia. Do you think she suspects? Marcus. Never. She's too busy conquering the world. She sees what she wants to see. She sees what she wants to see. The words burned into my retinas. He wasn't just cheating. He was mocking me. He was using my ambition, the very thing that paid for his Audi and his silk ties, as a blindfold. I looked at the baby registry. It was linked to an email address. Sophia Miller22@gmail.com. I closed the laptop. Slowly, deliberately. I stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. The city of Chicago looked different now. It wasn't a kingdom I had conquered. It was a cold, indifferent machine. But I was part of that machine. I was a gear that could grind them into dust. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Marcus. Wine is breathing. Hurry home. I picked up the phone. My fingers didn't tremble. I opened a new message thread, addressed to Sophia. She was supposed to come over next week to pick up the check for her final semester's tuition, $28,000. I had the check in my purse. I typed, Hey, sweetie. Change of plans. Come over for dinner tonight? I have that tuition check ready for you, and Marcus is making his famous short ribs. We should celebrate your final semester properly. I watched the 3 little dots appear immediately. She was probably sitting in her dorm, or maybe in the apartment I helped her rent, texting Marcus about how much they missed each other. OMG, really? Yes, I'd love to. I'm starving. See you in 30. Love you, Auntie Elena. Auntie Elena. The revulsion rose in my throat, bitter as bile, but I swallowed it down. I grabbed my coat, a camel cashmere trench I bought in Milan, and wrapped it around myself like armor. I picked up the tuition check from my purse. I looked at it for a moment. Then, I reached into my desk drawer, pulled out a thick manila envelope, and slid a different set of documents inside. I wasn't going home to eat short ribs. I was going home to hold court. I turned off the lights in my office, plunging the room into darkness. You want a legacy, Marcus? I whispered to the empty room. I'll give you a legacy. I walked to the elevator, the sound of my heels clicking on the marble floor echoing like the ticking of a bomb. The elevator ride to our penthouse usually takes 45 seconds. Tonight, it felt like a descent into the underworld, despite the fact that I was rising. The doors slid open with a soft ding, revealing the foyer of the home I had paid for. The sensory assault was immediate. The rich, savory scent of braised beef and thyme hung heavy in the air, wrapping around me like a suffocating blanket. Jazz Coltrane, if I wasn't mistaken, was playing softly from the hidden speakers. It was the perfect scene of domestic bliss. It was a stage set, and the leading man was already in costume. "Elena, is that you, baby?" Marcus appeared from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a navy blue apron. He held a glass of red wine in one hand. He looked devastatingly handsome, the silver at his temples catching the recessed lighting, his smile easy and warm. "It's me," I said, my voice steady. I hung my coat in the closet, taking a moment to compose my face. "Showtime." He walked over and kissed me. His lips were warm, tasting of oaky Cabernet. Yesterday, this kiss would have been the highlight of my evening. Today, it took every ounce of my willpower not to recoil, not to wipe my mouth with the back of my hand. I felt the physical ghost of another woman on him. I wondered if he had kissed Sophia like this after hearing their son's heartbeat 3 hours ago. "Rough day?" he asked, pulling back to look at me, his hand lingering on my waist. "You look tense." "Just contracts," I lied, stepping out of his reach under the guise of heading to the kitchen. "You know how it is. Everyone wants to secure their assets before the quarter ends. People get desperate when they think they're losing control." I watched his face carefully. Not a flicker of recognition. Just that smooth, practiced empathy. "Well, you're home now," he said, following me. "Let the sharks eat each other. Tonight is about us." I walked into the kitchen. It was a chef's dream sub-zero fridge, wolf range, marble countertops that cost more than my father's first house. Marcus had insisted on the renovations last year. He said he needed a creative space to develop menus for the club. "The short ribs need about 20 more minutes to rest," he said, pouring me a glass of wine. "I used that balsamic glaze you like, and I picked up some truffle polenta." I took the glass. I swirled the dark liquid, watching it coat the sides. "You spoil me, Marcus." "You deserve it," he said, leaning his hip against the counter. "You carry the weight of the world, Elle. I just want to make sure you have a soft place to land." A soft place to land. The audacity was breathtaking. I took a sip of the wine. It was excellent. I hated that it was excellent. "I was thinking about the club today," I said casually, setting the glass down. "About the renewal." "Yeah?" He didn't tense up, but he stopped swirling his wine. "Everything look okay with the paperwork?" "Oh, the paperwork is flawless," I said. "I'm good at my job, but it got me thinking about the future, about legacy." I turned to look him dead in the eye. "Do you ever think about what we're leaving behind, Marcus? We don't have children. Who gets the blue note when we're gone? Who inherits this apartment? It's just stuff, isn't it?" For a second, I saw it, a flash of panic in his dark eyes. It was gone as quickly as it came, replaced by a mask of somber reflection. "I think about it," he said softly. "But we have each other. That's enough for me." "Is it?" I pressed, stepping closer. "Because sometimes I feel like you want more. Like there's a part of you that's unsatisfied." He laughed, a nervous, jagged sound. "Unsatisfied? Elle, look at this life. I have the smartest, most beautiful woman in Chicago. I have a successful business. What else could I possibly want?" "A son," I thought, "a 25-year-old cheerleader." "I'm glad to hear you say that," I said, letting a small, sharp smile cut through my expression. "Because I have a surprise for you." Marcus brightened, clearly relieved to be off the topic of legacy. "A surprise? I thought I was the one doing the surprising with dinner." "Well, I decided we shouldn't celebrate alone," I said, checking my watch. "I invited Sophia." The glass in Marcus's hand didn't break, but it tilted dangerously. A splash of red wine sloshed over the rim and landed on his pristine white cuff.
"Sophia?"
He choked out.
"Tonight? In this blizzard?"
"Oh, don't worry, she's taking an Uber," I said, grabbing a paper towel and dabbing at his cuff. I stared at the stain. It looked like blood. "I have her tuition check for the final semester, $28,000. I figured I should give it to her in person. It's a big milestone, right? Her final step toward adulthood." Marcus pulled his arm away gently, his eyes darting to the hallway.
"Right, of course, it's just, I didn't make enough for 3.
"Don't be silly," I said, turning back to the counter. "We can slice the ribs thinner. We can stretch it. That's what family does, isn't it? We make room."
I need to check the sauce,"
Marcus mumbled. He turned his back to me, facing the stove. I saw his hand dip into his pocket. He was texting her. "Don't come." He was probably typing. "Abort mission." But it was too late.
Ding dong.
The doorbell chimed. Marcus froze. His shoulders were so tense they looked like they might snap. "That must be her," I said cheerfully. "She made good time." I walked past him, my heels clicking on the hardwood. I could feel his panic radiating off him like heat waves. He was trapped. If he told her to leave now, it would look suspicious. If he let her stay, he had to play the role of the doting uncle while his pregnant mistress sat across the table from his wife. I opened the heavy oak front door. A gust of freezing wind blew into the foyer, bringing snow with it. And there she was, Sophia. She was wrapped in a puffy white coat that looked too big for her, or maybe it was designed to hide a bump. Her cheeks were flushed pink from the cold, her blonde hair messy from the wind. She looked young, painfully, tragically young. She was looking at her phone, likely reading the frantic text Marcus had just sent when the door opened. Her head snapped up, fear wide in her eyes.
"Auntie Elena!"
she squeaked, shoving her phone into her pocket.
I got here so fast."
"You did," I said, stepping aside. "Come in out of the cold, sweetie." She stepped inside, stomping the snow off her boots. She looked past me, scanning the apartment, searching for him. Is Uncle Marcus here?" "In the kitchen," I said. I closed the door, shutting out the wind. Then I turned to her. I opened my arms. "Come here," I said. She hesitated, then stepped into my embrace. I hugged her. I hugged her hard. I felt her body stiffen against mine. I felt the slight, almost imperceptible curve of her lower abdomen against my stomach. I leaned in close to her ear, inhaling the scent of vanilla perfume and cold air. "You look different, Sophia," I whispered, my voice low and silky. "You're positively glowing." I pulled back, keeping my hands on her shoulders, pinning her in place. Her eyes were darting around like a trapped animal's. "Let's go have a drink," I said, steering her toward the kitchen where the butcher was waiting. "We have so much to celebrate." The dining room was a study in cold elegance. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the blizzard consuming Chicago, the snow swirling against the glass like white noise. Inside, the table was set for 3, but the geometry was all wrong. Marcus stood by the sideboard, his hands shaking slightly as he wrestled with the cork of the Dom Perignon. He wouldn't look at me. He wouldn't look at Sophia. He was staring fixedly at the bottle, as if the label contained the instructions for how to survive the next hour. Sophia sat on the edge of her chair, her coat still on, clutching her purse in her lap. She looked like a child waiting to be called into the principal's office. "Take your coat off, Sophia," I said, my voice smooth as polished glass. "Stay a while." She hesitated, her eyes darting to Marcus's back. When he didn't turn around, She slowly unzipped the white puffer coat. Underneath, she wore an oversized gray sweater. It was bulky, shapeless, intentional. It's okay, she stammered. I'm a little chilly. Nonsense, I said. The heat is on. We wouldn't want you overheating. It's bad for the constitution. Marcus finally popped the cork. The sound was like a gunshot in the quiet room. Pop. Pour, I commanded. He filled 2 crystal flutes. The bubbles rose in frantic golden chains. He reached for a 3rd glass, but I placed my hand over the rim. No champagne for Sophia, I said. Marcus froze. What? She's 25, Elena. She can have a glass. I don't think she should, I said, walking over to the recycling bin in the corner of the kitchen. I dug around for a moment, the plastic crinkling loudly, and pulled out a red Solo cup left over from a Super Bowl party 2 years ago. It was dusty. I walked to the sink, filled it with lukewarm tap water, and set it down on the placemat in front of Sophia. The contrast was violent. The delicate, hand-blown crystal flutes for us. The cheap, battered red plastic for her. There, I said, sitting at the head of the table. Hydration is important. Sophia stared at the cup. Her face went pale, her lips parting slightly. She knew. Somewhere, deep in her lizard brain, she knew. Let's make a toast, I said, raising my glass. Marcus picked up his flute, his knuckles white. Sophia didn't touch the red cup. To investments, I said, looking through the golden liquid at my husband. To the things we nurture, to the returns we expect. I turned my gaze to Sophia. And to the next generation. May they be smarter than their parents. I took a sip. The champagne was crisp, cold, and tasted like money. Marcus drank half his glass in one gulp. So, Marcus said, his voice too loud, too forced. The tuition. You mentioned the check? Always business, Marcus, I tissed. But yes, let's get to it. I reached into the inner pocket of my blazer and pulled out the thick manila envelope. It hit the mahogany table with a heavy thud. $28,000, I said softly. Covering the final semester of your master's in art history. It includes the housing stipend I provide, the meal plan, and the allowance for books. Sophia reached for it, her hand trembling. Thank you, Auntie Elena. I don't know what I'd do without you. Open it, I said. She paused, her fingers on the metal clasp. Oh, I don't need to count it. I trust you. Open it. The command wasn't shouted, but it carried the weight of a gavel strike. Marcus stepped forward. Elena, what's going on? You're acting strange. Sophia undid the clasp. She slid her hand inside, expecting the cool slip of a cashier's check. Instead, she pulled out a stack of 8x11 printer paper. The top sheet was a high-resolution screenshot of the Baby Vance registry. Item number 1, the stock sleepy crib, $2,500. Quantity, 1. Purchased by Marcus V. Sophia made a sound, a small, strangled whimper. She dropped the papers as if they were burning her skin. They scattered across the table. The second sheet fluttered down, landing face up next to Marcus's wine glass. The ultrasound. The grainy black and white image of a fetus. Silence. Absolute, vacuum-sealed silence. The only sound was the wind howling outside, trying to tear the building down. Marcus looked at the image. He closed his eyes. His posture collapsed, the confident restaurateur dissolving into a terrified middle-aged man. Sophia whispered. I can explain. You can explain? I asked, leaning back in my chair, swirling my champagne. Please, Sophia. I'm a lawyer. I love a good opening statement. Go ahead. Explain how my husband purchased a crib for my niece 3 weeks before our 20th anniversary.
It's not what it looks like,
Marcus blurted out, stepping between me and Sophia, instinctively shielding her. That movement, that instinctive need to protect her from me, hurt more than the infidelity itself. It was a physical manifestation of where his loyalty lay.
It's not?
I raised an eyebrow. So that's not your credit card number on the receipt? That's not your voice on the video I watched in my office 2 hours ago, calling that fetus my boy? Marcus's mouth opened and closed. He looked like a fish on a dock.
Elena, please,
he said, his voice cracking. We didn't mean for this to happen. It was a mistake. A one-time thing that got out of control. A one-time thing? I laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound. I reached for the stack of papers and pulled out the spreadsheet I had compiled in the last hour. You've been booking the suite at the Palmer House since last April. Every Tuesday. Inventory nights, you called them. That's 32 Tuesdays, Marcus. That's not a mistake. That's a schedule. Sophia burst into tears. It was a jagged, ugly sobbing. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I tried to stop it, but I love him. And I was so lonely, and he was the only one who understood me. Don't, I snapped. The word was a whip crack. Do not use the word love in my house. You don't know what love is. Love is paying for your braces when your father went to prison. Love is co-signing your lease so you didn't have to live in a dorm. Love is signing checks. I stood up. I felt 10 feet tall. And you? I turned to Marcus. You felt ignored? Did I work too much? Did I make you feel small because I paid the mortgage on this penthouse while your club was bleeding money for 3 years? I never asked you to pay for everything, Marcus shouted, his defense mechanism kicking in, anger masking shame. You hold it over my head, every day. I bought this, I paid for that. Sophia, she makes me feel like a man, not a dependent. She makes you feel like a man, I repeated, letting the words hang in the air. By letting you play daddy with my money? I picked up the ultrasound photo and flicked it toward him. It hit his chest and fluttered to the floor. You want to be a man, Marcus? A man pays his own bills. A man doesn't impregnate his wife's niece and hide it in a cloud folder. The baby is innocent, Sophia wailed, clutching her stomach. You can't hate the baby. It's family. It's biology, I corrected her. Family is a contract, and you both just breached it. I walked over to the kitchen island where the braised short ribs were sitting in the Dutch oven, cooling rapidly. The smell, once delicious, now turned my stomach. I bought the bed you sleep in, Sophia, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper that carried across the room. I bought the clothes on your back. And Marcus, I bought the stove you cooked this dinner on. I bought the wine in your glass. I bought the shoes on your feet. I picked up the tuition check, the real one, from the counter where I'd left it. I held it up. Sophia's eyes tracked it, desperate hope flaring in her tear-stained face. I ripped it in half, then in quarters. I let the confetti pieces rain down onto the floor. Did you really think, I asked, staring them down, that you could disrespect the landlord and keep the lease? Marcus looked at the torn check, then at me.
Elena, what are you doing?
I'm evicting you, I said. Both of you. Tonight.
You can't,
Marcus scoffed, trying to regain some ground.
It's a blizzard, and this is my home too. I have rights.
I smiled. It was the smile I saved for the moment the jury returned a guilty verdict. Oh, honey, I said. You haven't read the prenup lately, have you?
The prenup?
Marcus scoffed, though the color was rapidly draining from his face. He took a step toward me, hands raised in a placating gesture that I had seen him use on disgruntled suppliers 1,000 times.
Elena, stop. You're talking like a lawyer, not my wife. This is our home. We built this life together. You can't just invoke a clause and erase 20 years? I'm not erasing 20 years, Marcus, I said, tapping the surface of the mahogany table with a manicured nail. I'm auditing them. I walked over to the sideboard where my iPad sat charging. I unlocked it and brought up a spreadsheet I had titled The Cost of Betrayal. I tapped the screen to project it onto the large Samsung frame TV mounted above the fireplace. Suddenly, the cozy digital art of a winter landscape was replaced by rows and columns of cold, hard data. Let's look at the numbers, shall we? I said, gesturing to the screen like I was leading a board meeting. Because while you two were whispering sweet nothings, I was following the money. You were sloppy, Marcus. You used the corporate card for the inventory nights. You categorized them as vendor meetings. I pointed to a line item. The Palmer House Hilton, Tuesdays, $389 a night. Room service, average of $120. Do you know what's fascinating? You always ordered the truffle fries. Sophia loves truffle fries, doesn't she? Sophia gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. She looked at Marcus with betrayal in her eyes, not because he cheated, but because he got caught. And here, I swiped to the next page. The gifts. A diamond tennis bracelet from Tiffany's in October. $4,500. Charged to the Blue Note Capital Improvement Fund. I assumed it was for the club's anniversary gala, but I never saw that bracelet, did I? I looked at Sophia's wrist. She instinctively pulled her sweater sleeve down, hiding the sparkle I had glimpsed earlier. You stole from me, I said, my voice dropping an octave. You didn't just cheat on your marriage vows. You embezzled from the company that I keep afloat. I was going to pay it back, Marcus shouted, his facade finally cracking into ugly, red-faced anger. You don't understand, Elena. You make me feel like a child asking for an allowance. With Sophia, I was the provider. I was the one taking care of her. She looked up to me. She made me feel like a king, not an employee. A king? I laughed, a harsh, incredulous sound. You felt like a king because you were spending my gold on a girl young enough to be your daughter. I turned to Sophia. She was weeping silently now, tears tracking through her foundation. And you, I said, walking toward her. She shrank back into her chair. What's your excuse, Sophia? Did I make you feel small too? Or did you just want the shortcut? I loved him, she sobbed, her voice high and thin. He listened to me. He told me how lonely he was, how you were always working, how you didn't understand his art. I didn't mean to hurt you, Auntie Elena. It just happened. We fell in love. Love, I repeated, tasting the word like spoiled milk. Let me tell you what this love actually is. I leaned down, placing my hands on the arms of her chair, trapping her. He is 47 years old. You are 25. He is a failed musician living on his wife's dime. You are a student with no income. This isn't a romance novel, Sophia. This is a cliché. You were convenient. You were an ego boost. And the moment the bills stop getting paid, you're going to realize that King doesn't have a castle. That's not true, Sophia screamed, pushing me away. We're going to be a family. We're going to raise this baby together. With what money? I asked simply. I walked over to the corner of the room. On a dedicated display table stood a large, intricate architectural model. It was made of foam core and balsa wood, a detailed replica of the Blue Note's proposed expansion. I had spent 6 months working with architects on this, designing a second floor, a VIP lounge, a state-of-the-art recording studio. It was supposed to be Marcus's 50th birthday present, the physical manifestation of his dream. I ran my finger along the miniature roof. I approved the permits for this yesterday, I said softly. The contractors were scheduled to break ground on Monday. $2 million in renovations. My capital. Marcus's eyes widened. He stepped forward, his hand reaching out. Elena, don't. Please. That's the club's future. That's my future. You don't have a future, Marcus. Not with me. I swept my arm across the table. Crash! The model went flying. It hit the hardwood floor with a sickening crunch. The balsa wood shattered. The miniature grand piano snapped in half. The foam walls crumbled. Consider the renovation canceled, I said. Marcus stared at the wreckage of his dream. He fell to his knees, picking up a broken piece of the roof, looking at it like it was a dead bird. You're a monster, he whispered, looking up at me. How can you be so cold? There is a child involved. My child. A child I will not pay for, I said, and a child I will not house. I checked my watch. 8:15 p.m. The blizzard was raging outside, wind gusts hitting 50 miles per hour. The prenup, I circled back, has a specific clause regarding infidelity. If you are found to be unfaithful, you forfeit all claims to the marital residence and any businesses funded primarily by my separate property. That includes the penthouse. That includes the club. I walked to the front door and opened it. The cold air rushed in again, biting and bitter. Get out, I said. Sophia looked at the open door, then at the snow swirling in the dark. But it's a blizzard. I can't drive in this. I'm pregnant. You should have thought about the weather before you started sleeping with my husband, I said, leaning against the doorframe. Uber is still running. I suggest you call one, but do it from the lobby. You're trespassing. You can't kick us out in a storm, Marcus yelled, standing up. I live here. Not anymore, I said. The deed is in the name of Vance Holdings, LLC. I am the sole managing member. You are a guest, and your invitation has been revoked. I picked up Sophia's coat from the floor where she'd dropped it and threw it at her. It hit her in the chest. You wanted to be an adult, Sophia? Welcome to adulthood. Actions have consequences. Now get out of my house before I call the police and have you removed. Sophia scrambled up, terrified by the icy resolve in my voice. She pulled on her coat, sobbing hysterically. Marcus stood there, paralyzed, looking between me and the door. You're destroying me, he said. No, Marcus, I replied, pointing at the shattered model on the floor. I'm just stopping the subsidy. You destroyed yourself. My dad, Sophia stammered, clutching the lapels of her coat as the draft from the open door bit into the warm foyer. My dad won't let you do this. When he finds out, he already knows, I interrupted, my voice flat. Sophia froze. What? I called Statesville Correctional an hour ago, I said, leaning against the doorframe, blocking the wind with my body, but letting enough chill in to remind them of what awaited outside. I have a scheduled weekly call with my brother. Usually we talk about your grades. We talk about how proud he is that you're breaking the cycle. Tonight, we talked about you and Marcus. Sophia's face crumbled. For the first time, the reality of her social isolation hit her. Her father, a man who was serving 15 years for racketeering, had a strict moral code about loyalty. He had entrusted his daughter to his sister. He had entrusted his respect to his brother-in-law. He didn't believe you, she whispered, shaking her head. He loves me. He loves the version of you I paid to create, I corrected. When I told him you were sleeping with his sister's husband, the man he considered a brother, he didn't say anything for a full minute. And then he told me to cut you off. His exact words were, "She made her bed in the dirt. she can sleep in it. Sophia let out a sound that was half sob, half wail. She looked at Marcus, seeking comfort, but Marcus was too busy frantically patting his pockets. "My keys," Marcus muttered, his eyes darting to the antique silver bowl on the console table where he always dropped his car keys. "I need my keys." He lunged for the bowl. My hand got there first. I snatched the fob for the Audi Q8. The leather felt cold and heavy in my palm. "Give me the keys, Elena," Marcus snarled, a flash of his old temper surfacing. "You can kick me out, fine, but the car is mine. I need to get us to a hotel." "The Audi?" I asked, holding the fob up to the light. "The Audi is leased under Vance Legal Group. It's a company car, just like the phone in your pocket is on the company plan." I saw the realization hit him. He was being stripped, not just of his home, but of his mobility, his communication, his identity. "You can't leave us stranded," he pleaded, his voice cracking. "Elena, look outside. It's a whiteout. You're sentencing us to hypothermia." "I'm sentencing you to the CTA," I said, nodding toward the elevator. "The red line runs all night. There's a station 2 blocks away. I'm sure you can walk 2 blocks. You're young at heart, right, Marcus?" I tossed the keys into the depths of the coat closet behind me. They landed with a soft clatter among the winter boots. "Out!" I commanded. Marcus looked at me one last time. In his eyes, I saw 20 years of history dissolving. He looked for the wife who used to surprise him with concert tickets, the woman who had held his hand when his mother died. He found only the attorney. He grabbed Sophia's arm. "Come on," he spat. "We don't need her. We don't need her money." He was lying, and we all knew it. They stepped out into the hallway. The elevator doors were already open, waiting. They walked in, Marcus stiff with rage, Sophia sobbing into her hands. As the doors began to slide shut, Marcus looked back at me. "You'll regret this," he said. "You'll be the richest woman in the graveyard, Elena, and you'll be alone." "Better alone than in bad company," I replied. The doors closed. The digital numbers above the frame started to count down. 45, 44, 43. I closed the front door. I threw the deadbolt. Click. I engaged the secondary lock. Thud. I put the security chain in place. Rattle. Then, silence. The apartment was enormous. Without the jazz music, without the sound of cooking, without the lies filling the space, it felt like a mausoleum. The wind battered the windows, a dull, rhythmic thumping that sounded like a heartbeat. I walked back into the dining room. The tuition check confetti was scattered on the floor. The broken model of the jazz club lay like a ruin. The braised short ribs were cold in the pot. My knees gave out. I didn't fall gracefully. I collapsed. I sank to the floor right there in the dining room, amidst the wreckage of the life I had subsidized. The scream didn't come from my throat. It came from my gut. It was a primal, animalistic sound that tore through the careful composure I had maintained for 3 hours. I screamed until my throat tasted like copper. I grabbed the leg of the mahogany table and shook it, sobbing so hard my vision blurred. I cried for the baby that should have been mine. I cried for the niece I had loved like a daughter. I cried for the husband who had looked me in the eye this morning and told me I was beautiful, knowing he was going to betray me by noon. I crawled over to the broken balsa wood model. I picked up a piece of the miniature wall, the wall I had designed to give Marcus better acoustics. I crushed it in my fist until the wood splintered into my skin. "I built you," I whispered to the empty room. "I built all of you." I lay there on the cold hardwood floor for hours, watching the snow pile up against the glass, burying the city in white.
I let the grief wash over me like a tidal wave. I let it drown me, but I knew how to swim. 3 months later, the Cook County Courthouse smells of floor wax and desperation. It's a scent I've known my whole career, but usually I'm the one walking in with the briefcase full of leverage. Today, I was the defendant. I sat at the defense table, my spine straight, my suit a sharp charcoal gray armor. Beside me was my lawyer, David Chen, a shark I had mentored 10 years ago. Across the aisle, Marcus sat. He looked terrible. He had lost weight. His suit one I hadn't bought was ill-fitting and cheap. Next to him was a lawyer I recognized from billboards near the airport, the kind who advertises quick divorces and DUI defense. Sophia wasn't there. "All rise," the bailiff called out. Judge Holloway entered. She was a no-nonsense woman who had presided over corporate mergers I'd handled in the past. She sat down, adjusted her glasses, and looked at the docket. "Case 24C902, she read. "Marcus Vance versus Elena Vance and Vance Holdings, LLC. Plaintiff is seeking an emergency injunction to halt the sale of the business entity known as the Blue Note and claims equitable interest in said property." Marcus's lawyer stood up. He adjusted his tie nervously. "Your Honor, my client dedicated 10 years of his life to building the brand of this club. He was the face, the creative force. To allow Mrs. Vance to liquidate it just because her name is on the LLC is a miscarriage of justice. It's theft of intellectual property." I didn't look at Marcus. I looked at the judge. "Mr. Vance," Judge Holloway said, peering over her glasses, "I have reviewed the prenuptial agreement submitted by the defense. I have also reviewed the financial records showing that Vance Holdings provided 100% of the capital for the club, covered all losses for the last 5 years, and paid the salary of the plaintiff." She paused, flipping a page. "I also see here," she continued, her voice dry, "that the plaintiff was terminated from his position as general manager for gross misconduct involving the misuse of company funds for personal entertainment." Marcus flinched. "Your Honor," his lawyer stammered, "we are arguing that the prenup was signed under duress." "Save it for the trial, counselor," Holloway snapped. "Motion for injunction denied. Mrs. Vance has every legal right to sell, burn, or turn that club into a parking lot if she sees fit." She banged her gavel. I finally turned to look at Marcus. Our eyes met. He looked desperate, begging for a scrap of mercy. I offered him a small, polite nod, the kind you give a stranger on the subway. Then I picked up my briefcase. It was time to finish the demolition. I sold the Blue Note 6 weeks after the court hearing. I didn't sell it to another restaurateur who would keep Marcus's spirit alive. I didn't look for a buyer who appreciated jazz. I sold the building to a commercial developer who planned to gut the interior, strip the vintage mahogany bar, and turn the space into a high-end, sterile co-working space for tech startups. The day the sold sign went up, Marcus called me. It was the first time I'd answered his call since the eviction. "You're erasing me," he choked out. He sounded drunk. It was 11 a.m. "I'm liquidating an asset, Marcus," I replied, signing the final deed of transfer on my desk. "It's just business. You remember business, don't you? It's what you were supposed to be doing on Tuesday nights." I hung up. I didn't feel a surge of triumph. I felt the light, airy sensation of a burden being lifted. The club had been a black hole for my money and my emotional energy for a decade. Now, it was just a check with a lot of zeros in my bank account. 4 months later, a letter arrived at my office. It had no return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. Large, looping, girlish letters. Sophia. Inside was a photograph. A baby boy, wrapped in a blue blanket, sleeping in a plastic hospital bassinet. He had the Vance nose. He had Marcus's chin. The letter was stained with tears. "His name is Leo. He's innocent, Auntie Elena. We are living in a studio apartment in Rogers Park. Marcus is working. but it's not enough. Leo needs things. Please, hate me, but don't punish him. I looked at the photo. My grandnephew, my husband's son, a biological tangle of betrayal and blood. The old Elena, the one who needed to control everything. The one who fixed everyone's problems would have driven over there with a trunk full of diapers and a checkbook. She would have tried to save the baby from the wreckage his parents created. But the architect had new blueprints. I called my estate lawyer, David. Set up a trust, I instructed. The Leo Vance Education and Health Trust. Standard allowance? David asked. No, I said, my voice sharp. Direct vendor payments only. Tuition paid directly to the school. Medical bills paid directly to the doctor. Not a single cent of cash goes to the parents. If Sophia wants to buy a latte, she can earn it. If she wants to buy diapers, she submits a receipt for reimbursement. Make it ironclad. I mailed the details of the trust to Sophia with a note that was 2 sentences long. Your son will not suffer for your choices, but you will not profit from my guilt. 1 year later, I was walking down Wicker Park Avenue on a rainy Tuesday. I had just left a meeting with a new client, a woman starting her own graphic design firm after a messy divorce. I had started my own boutique firm, Vance Strategy, specializing in helping women protect their assets during high-conflict separations. I wasn't just a lawyer anymore. I was a shield. I decided to duck into a diner to grab a coffee while the rain passed. It was a greasy spoon, the kind with vinyl booths and the smell of old frying oil. Not the kind of place I used to frequent, but I found comfort in the unpretentious reality of it. I sat at the counter and ordered a black coffee. Order up, a voice shouted from the kitchen hatch. I froze. The voice was gravelly, familiar. I looked through the service window. There, wearing a grease-stained white t-shirt and a hairnet, was Marcus. He looked 10 years older. His face was puffy, the sharp jawline softened by cheap alcohol and stress. He was scraping the grill, flipping burgers with a mechanical, defeated rhythm. The charisma was gone. The king of the kitchen was now just a line cook at a diner that probably paid him minimum wage. He turned to grab a plate, and for a split second, he looked through the window and saw me. I held my breath. I waited for the anger. I waited for the heartbreak. I waited for the urge to run in there and scream at him, or the urge to save him. I felt nothing. It was a profound, hollow silence where the love used to be. He was just a man, a stranger with a familiar face, a bad investment I had written off. Marcus's eyes widened. He wiped his hands on his apron, shame flooding his face. He looked like he wanted to hide under the grill. I didn't smile. I didn't frown. I simply picked up my coffee to go, left a $20 bill on the counter, an excessive tip, perhaps a final act of charity, and walked out into the rain. I didn't look back. Today, I stand on the balcony of my new home. It's a lake house in Michigan, 2 hours away from the city. I designed it myself. Floor-to-ceiling glass, clean lines, open spaces. It is quiet here. The wind off the lake is different than the wind in the city. It doesn't howl. It breathes. I am 46 years old. I am single. My apartment in the sky is sold. My niece is a stranger to me. My ex-husband is a memory. Some people tell me I was too harsh. My brother, still in prison, sends me letters saying that family is everything, that I should forgive. He doesn't understand. Forgiveness isn't about letting the wolf back into the house. It's about realizing you don't need to hunt the wolf anymore. You just lock the door. I take a sip of wine, a vintage I bought for myself, with my own money, poured into a glass that no one else drinks from. I used to think I was the foundation for everyone else. I thought my job was to hold up the walls so Marcus could shine, so Sophia could grow. I thought being strong meant carrying the weight of their failures. I was wrong. I look out at the water, vast and deep and indifferent. I am not the foundation for a crumbling house anymore. I am the architect of my own peace. And this time, I built it to last. To anyone standing in the wreckage of a life they thought was permanent, stop trying to glue the broken pieces back together. You will only cut your hands. Sweep it up, throw it out, and start digging a new foundation. Because the view from the other side? It's magnificent.